What's the most high-risk, low-reward thing you've ever done? I swam in the Zambezi when I was drunk on a tiger fishing trip. Still can't believe I was that stupid. For those that don't know, it's infested with hippos and crocs. Known for taking people. But tiger fishing in the Zambezi sounds f***ing sweet though. I didn't know they had poles strong enough to fish for tigers. I used to dive in ponds at golf courses to collect the lost balls and sort them to sell back to the courses. It's unbelievable just how many snakes, alligators, and leeches live in those things. I made less than minimum wage, around 6-ish at the time, and had countless close calls with critters. However, the most dangerous creatures on golf courses are old people. They do not give a f if you're working. They will absolutely send balls of hard plastic hurtling at your head at 50 miles per hour without a second thought. Then get pissed when their ball hit your tank or cart and split open. Then demand you hand over some of your recovered balls in compensation. God, I can't believe how entitled people think they are. My friends and I used to target and steal those signs that said, if you are caught stealing you will be prosecuted. Many illegal things were done and many hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff was ignored to steal increasingly difficult to obtain paper signs. I once followed a young homeless man I just met because he wanted to show me where he was staying. It was nighttime and he invited me down into a dip in the trees. We walked through a dark section of forest, then he showed me some rocks and small caves with a couple beds set up. Then we left. I literally followed a stranger into the dark woods because curiosity, suicidality. Never go with a hippie to a second location. Jack 30 Rock. Told this story before but it's been a while. My friends and I used to break into expensive looking houses and use their showers. This was in the late 90s when ridiculous showers were in vogue and we wanted to know if they were actually any good. For the most part they were not. We never stole anything, well, except water. We brought our own towels and toiletries. We were very careful about who we hit and made sure they had set schedules and no children or pets. The reward was a shitty shower. We risked jail time. This sounds like a scheme that would be pulled in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Climbing up a water tower when drunk to find a friend. Turns out said friend was not even lost. He was yelling at me from the base of the tower. CPR on 2 active TB patients. Felt like S after. Neither made it. If you didn't you'd be asking yourself what would have happened if you did. Despite the bad outcome you absolutely did the right thing. Motorbait using VapoRub. Thanks for the warning. I haven't done it but I figured it was basically just spicy Vaseline. It is. Broke into an abandoned mental hospital on cocaine with a bunch of people I mostly didn't even like in college. Technically I got something out of it, a door number from one of the rooms. Which I promptly became terrified would somehow make me haunted because cocaine, and passed off to someone else at the first opportunity. Licked raw chicken to prove not all chicken had salmonella. Shoplifted condo s 3 years ago. I'm still a virgin. Perhaps the username has something to do with it? Whilst building a house, the second floor had an I-beam that extended into nowhere that needed to be painted with rust protection paint. The floor had not been installed yet and the joists were still going in. To save time, I shimmied out to the end of the beam and started painting. Every breath of wind made the whole thing sway. Just my movements made it wiggle a fair bit. Nearly took a 6-meter swan dive to a concrete floor about 12 times. I could have painted it after the floor was in, but that would mean laying down drop sheets and lots of messing around. Should have waited. Was a totally stupid thing to do. Jumping onto a bus that was pulling away from the bus stop without closing its doors. The bus is every 10 minutes. Decided to see how fast I could get up to on a nearby neighborhood road. Driving my mother's car no less. Got up to 80 miles per hour in around 6 seconds I think. And by the time I realized I should be slowing down the tires were screeching as I tried to stay on the road. It was a mostly straight neighborhood road, 35 miles per hour, that curved near the end leading to a 4-way stop. I got up to 80 right where the road began to curve. And as I was turning I was going so fast that I went over into the other lane. Just a foot or two from going up over the curb. Slowed down and brought the car to a stop at the intersection and my family member sitting in the passenger seat looked over at me as if he had just the life right out of himself. I was 19 at the time. And got my license that same summer. My passenger was 16. I've never had such a powerful moment of instant regret after that day. I didn't feel cool at all. I could have killed a pedestrian, a child, or myself and my family member. That was the day I truly learned that I could lose my life. And have respected all traffic laws since, well, to a reasonable extent. I'm only glad that we came out completely unharmed. Taking a year in a program I wasn't interested in to try and get a girl who turned me down instantly. Edit, I wasn't horny. I was lonely. And we were good friends prior. Not so much afterwards as S got awkward. It was also my second year. So I did get a useless degree I never claimed for my trouble, social science. D decisions are always the worst. The human race almost ended because of D decisions. Source, just started watching Battlestar Galactica. Told my mom that my dad was working outside and not the truth of him tearing out a wall because he decided a sliding door would be pretty. He did not get it done before she got home. I skipped class after a standardized test. Literally the afternoon teachers were showing movies and doing nothing, and I decided it was smart to get in school suspension to sit behind a warehouse and nap with my Doomba-esque friend. When I was about 7. There was some kind of meeting we had at school where the school counselor was asking a large group of us if there was anything we were sad or mad about. I think it was basically meant as an introduction to the concept of a counselor. I was sad that my great-grandmother had recently died. And I mentioned it. The counselor told me that it was okay to be sad. That there's a grieving process. Etc. You know, the regular advice for that sort of thing. But for some bizarre reason, what I told my mother later was completely different. To this day I cannot figure out why I did this. I don't remember disliking the counselor or anything like that. The only thing I can think of is that maybe I was doing one of those nonsensical "what happens if I do this thing" experiments that all kids do. I told my mom that the counselor had told me, "You need to just forget about it and move on with your life." I had no idea what can of worms I had just opened. My mom was livid. Over the course of the next few days, she called the school asking why the counselor would say something like that to me, and she discussed it with a few different people. They asked what the counselor's exact words were according to me. And my mom sat down and began to write a letter to make it into a formal complaint. She asked me what exactly the counselor said so that she could put it in this letter. At that point I knew this had gone way too far. And I was feeling bad over the fact that I was going to get this woman in trouble. So I finally admitted, quietly, she said, that it's okay to be sad. My mom, dad and grandmother were all very disappointed in me. My mom asked me why I would lie about something like that. I genuinely didn't have an answer for her. Because I didn't know. When I said it, I had no idea it was going to go that far. I didn't know that my mom was going to go all the way to making a formal complaint about it, in the few days before she started writing the letter. I was hoping that she'd just sort of let the whole thing go. But she didn't, so I eventually had to fess up. I still feel bad about that to this day. Because assuming the counselor was told about this, she had to be wondering why I was trying to get her in trouble. She was a nice lady and didn't do anything wrong. But for whatever reason, I clicked the wrong dialogue choice and quickly realized that I couldn't exactly reload from save. Anya. Almost called 911. Again. Balanced on the top rung of a 6-meter ladder to change a light bulb at work. I stole every wheel off the chairs in my high school's computer lab as a joke during a 20-minute break. I still have one of them. Probably could have gotten expelled just for a slightly funny joke and a useless chair wheel. I did the same thing except it was the mouse balls from the computer lab. So dumb. I was a free intern for a flower shop. One day there was a shady person walking in the store basement. Somebody said he stole something from the shop and fled to the basement. The shop was in an apartment building. Street level, and the basement led to all over the building. So they said to me, a 16-year-old girl, to go to the basement and check the situation out. Well, I was young and dumb and went. Thank God I found no one. Greater than free intern for a flower shop. Sneaking into my parents' room at night while they were sleeping to use the ensuite as it was more comfortable than the shared bathroom. It took ages as I slowly opened the door and crept across the room too. All for a cozier poop. Thinking back now, that was madness. When I did get caught eventually, my dad screamed, "WTF are you doing in here at this hour?" And when the answer was to use that bathroom instead of the other bathroom, he just about lost his mind. Or worse. Like me. You could have accidentally caught your parents in the act. And made eye contact with your dad mid-thrust. The sight was worse than the punishment after. Way worse. Going way beyond the speed limit when I first started driving. I started smoking. Like, WTF is this stupid shish tea? It has literally no benefit, it just makes me uncomfortable when I don't do it and when I do it as well. Cigarettes. I was working as a chef in a gourmet bar, restaurant. And I'd become somewhat of a teacher's pet in the form of my manager's favorite employee because I was never late. Covered shifts etc., not for his sake. I wanted more money. New guy started and he was just awful. Only got 2 weeks into the job before almost being sacked, but I wanted to teach him the ways. Anyway. One day he carelessly left a cloth on an open flame during prep in the morning of Valentine's Day, our biggest revenue generator, and the fire ravaged through about 1/4 of the kitchen. Including the stock, the microwaves, the cooker and the veg prep area. And for some stupid f-king reason I said it was my fault when the manager was on the warpath. Thinking the new guy would be saved and I'd just take a humongous bollocking for being stupid and all would be fine eventually. Nope. I got sacked. He threw me out. To this day I will never ever understand why I put my neck into that guillotine of fire. Moved across the country for a guy. Got married. Now divorced. Hate it here. No family. I once went on a heater at the Luxor in Vegas. When it was over I had turned $60 into $78K and change. I was drunk with excitement. It was 8 a.m. Saturday. On the way to the cage, shadowed by 3 floor guys. I spied an empty blackjack table. I walked over to it and asked one of the floor guys with me if I could bet it all in one hand. The table has a 5K limit. He nodded okay. AA. I had no money to split. After 2 hits we end up pushing on a 17 and I avoided what would have been the most stupid, embarrassing thing I have ever done. So basically you were an idiot bailed out by fate. I was in band in high school. I had a friend from middle school that was also involved in athletics at the time and the two of us were outcasts among the greater band nerd population and often got talked down to. Which even our instructor would join in on from time to time. At the time flipping backpacks was popular, taking things out of the backpack. Flipping the backpack inside out. Returning the items to the bag and zipping the bag back up. One day when we had a substitute in and he had the class watch the typical BS Mozart movie from the 80s again. I found a mega bag of zip ties and convinced my buddy to help me flip every student's backpack. Zip tie the bags closed. And then zip tie the bags into the instrument lockers while everyone watched the movie. If we got caught and reported, the instructor 100% would have suspended us. So we were on extra edge, and right as we were wrapping up, the substitute locked eyes with us from across the room and realized what was going on and decided to pretend nothing happened, and we completed the mission right on time. The class was very pissed as the lights flicked on and they saw what had unfolded. The substitute came back for a class later that year and talked to us, saying he had to actively try not to lose his S when he saw what was going on. IF King love you Mr. Hudson. I once climbed an old truss bridge to get some neat pictures of myself. I climbed under it and sat on the beams beneath the bridge. I climbed to the very top. I hung off the edge of the bridge above several rocks. Once I got done and showed the pictures to my friends and they said they sucked.